Right now, the entire NFL is holding its breath over one question. Is Aaron Donald, arguably the greatest defensive player who ever lived, about to come out of retirement? 3 years after walking away at the top, the most feared defender of his generation has been spotted back at the Rams facility, lifting, drilling, getting into football shape. He says he's flirting with the idea, and if he really does come back at 35, the whole league should be terrified. Stick around, because we'll get to exactly where that comeback stands. But first, you have to understand where this man actually came from. Because the real story isn't the freak of nature everyone thinks they know, it's a basement in Pittsburgh. At 35, Aaron Donald carries a title no defensive player is supposed to reach. The most unblockable force the sport has ever seen. Not a great tackle. The standard itself, the name every interior lineman is measured against and, almost always, found short of. The football world decided long ago what he was: a freak, an anomaly, a man built by nature to wreck everything in front of him. Headlines reached for the biggest words available: the most dominant defender of his era, a generational talent who seemed to belong to a different category of human. The cameras tried to define him through sacks, awards, and the sheer physics of what he did to grown men. But there is a detail the freak of nature story never explains. He wasn't born this way. As a boy, by his own admission, Aaron Donald was lazy, slow to finish chores, quick to raid the snacks. The monster the NFL feared was not a gift. It was built in a basement, before sunrise, by his father. Before the awards and the double teams, Aaron's story was measured in a working-class Pittsburgh neighborhood, a father's unfinished dream, and an alarm clock that went off long before the sun. Born on May 23, 1991, Aaron Donald grew up in the Lincoln-Leamington-Belmar neighborhood, a gritty, blue-collar corner of a blue-collar city. Daily life there followed the practical rhythm of a working family: shifts, school, and the belief, stitched into Pittsburgh itself, that nothing arrives without work. Aaron grew up as the youngest of 3 children of Archie Donald and Anita Goggins. His father, Archie, had once chased the NFL himself, a nose tackle whose own dream was cut short by a knee injury. That unfinished dream became a kind of fuel. Watching his son drift, watching him grow soft and unstructured, Archie made a decision. One morning, he woke 12-year-old Aaron, took him down to the basement, and started to build something. They called it the Dungeon, a homemade gym under a 2-story brick house, gloomy, low-ceilinged, unglamorous. Father and son would wake at 4:30 in the morning and train for nearly 2 hours before school. Archie's rule was simple, repeated like a drumbeat: hard work pays off. Man made it, man can lift it. It was not a manufactured origin story invented later. It was a real place, a real hour, and a real father refusing to let his son become less than he could be. On the local fields, that basement work began to show. At Penn Hills High School, Aaron starred, but the doubt followed him everywhere. He was undersized for the position, barely 6 feet tall, and the biggest programs looked past him. He was rated just a 3-star recruit, and he stayed close to home, committing to the University of Pittsburgh, the city that raised him. His childhood did not abruptly end, but its rhythm changed. In college, the pre-dawn discipline of the Dungeon met world-class competition, and the same doubt trailed him onto a bigger stage. Too short, too light, not built for it. Over and over, the measurement mattered more to everyone else than the work did. Then, in his senior season, the doubt finally shattered. Aaron Donald became the most dominant defensive player in college football, sweeping nearly every major award the sport could give a defender. Among them, the Bronco Nagurski Trophy for the nation's best, a trophy he won on his father Archie's birthday. The lazy kid from the basement stood behind a row of trophies in a tuxedo, and the boy who had been overlooked was suddenly impossible to ignore. What looked like raw, unteachable dominance under the stadium lights had been strengthened morning after morning in a gym with a bare bulb. And yet, even then, the old doubt held on. On draft night in 2014, team after team passed. 12 of them, still fixated on his height, still unsure a man his size could dominate professionals. He fell to the 13th pick, where the Rams finally called his name. 12 franchises would spend the next decade regretting it. What followed rewrote what a defensive tackle could be. Defensive Rookie of the Year, then 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 2017, 2018, and 2020. 8-time first-team All-Pro. Offenses built entire game plans around stopping one man, and still couldn't. The player everyone called too small became the most feared interior defender in the history of the game. But listen to how the story keeps folding back on itself. In interview after interview, Donald pointed away from himself, back to Pittsburgh, back to Archie, back to the dungeon. He liked to say his father had been training him to be a pro before either of them knew it. And then came the summit. Super Bowl LV1, the game on the line, one stop between the Rams and a title. It was Donald who forced the final pressure, Donald who ended it, Donald who turned to the cameras and pointed at his ring finger as the confetti rained down. The boy from the basement was a world champion. When he stepped away from the game in 2024, he left as arguably the greatest defensive player who ever lived. And for most legends, that would be the end of the story. But here's where it gets interesting, because Aaron Donald's story might not be over at all. In the summer of 2026, the whispers started, and they haven't stopped since. It began the moment the Rams pulled off a blockbuster, trading for reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, from the Cleveland Browns. Less than 24 hours later, the Donald comeback rumors caught fire, and instead of shutting them down, the man himself poured gasoline on it. He admitted he was, in his words, flirting with the idea, pointing to the fact that this season's Super Bowl 61 is being played at SoFi Stadium, the Rams' own home stadium. If he could find the fire, he said, it was a possibility. And with quarterback Matthew Stafford coming off a brilliant 2025 season and that championship window wide open, the pull is real. Then came the footage. Aaron Donald, at 35, back at the Rams facility. Not once, but multiple times. Working out with the team, going through drills, getting himself back into football shape. Reporters and insiders started using words like real possibility. His head coach Sean McVay sounded optimistic. And the word out of the building was that if Donald comes back, he doesn't want to be a role player. He wants to be the wrecking ball he always was. So here's the question I want to leave you with. The question the entire NFL is asking right now. Is Aaron Donald actually coming back? Can a man who has been retired for 3 years walk back in and dominate grown professionals all over again? Or should a legend leave the legend exactly where it stands? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Is he coming back or not? And if you think the boy from the dungeon has one more run left in him, hit that like button and let me know. Because if there's one thing this whole story has taught us, it's this. Never, ever bet against the kid who was told he was too small. Whatever he decides, the truest symbol of who he is was never the trophies or the number 99. It was a basement in Pittsburgh, the dungeon, that his family never let go of, its weight still sitting exactly where a father once woke a sleepy 12-year-old before dawn. The distance between that gym and the summit of the sport was enormous, but the dungeon suggested the distance had never erased where he came from. Every quarterback he chased down, every double team he split, connected the legend feared by an entire league with the boy whose father simply refused to let him be ordinary. One 4:30 alarm, one lifted barbell, one morning at a time. And if he really is coming back, the league might be about to remember exactly what that means.